Hi, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Father Bill W. I'm an alcoholic recovering priest living here in Austin, Texas. I've had the gift of recovery since December of 1972 and have worked in the treatment field most of my professional life as a therapist, family therapist, and then running treatment centers. My ministry is to people who are in recovery, and I'm particularly interested in a process called two-way prayer. I kind of stumbled on that maybe about 28 years ago now, when I was learning about early AA, its connection with the Oxford group. And they did a form of prayer back then called two-way prayer as part of a morning quiet time. I began doing it, and I found that it really transformed my life. So encourage you to go to our website and visit there if you haven't done that already, and to begin the practice. And you can follow us on Facebook, and love to hear from you if you've got some ideas for a series or such. Please, we would welcome hearing from you. You can contact me at twowayprayer@gmail.com. The series we're into right now is centered around Carl Jung. Jung was, you could say, one of the primary individuals who got AA going. He sent a client of his, a patient of his by the name of Roland Hazard, in search of a transformative spiritual experience. And Roland wound up in the Oxford group, and he changed as a result of that. He began doing serious spiritual work, and it resulted in his transformation, his change. And then, as a part of that, people in the Oxford group would try to go and help other individuals undergo change. And being an alcoholic himself, Roland naturally concentrated on helping other alcoholics. He helps Ebby, and then Ebby helps Bill Wilson, and Bill Wilson helps all of us. And he did it through much of the spiritual experiences that he encountered, spiritual practices, that's better, that he encountered through the Oxford group. So by studying them, I think you can come to a deeper appreciation of really what underlies recovery and what that transformational experience is all about. And for me, it really centered on the two-way prayer practice. That was key to what they were doing. Bill Wilson later said he thought AA lost something seriously when they kind of cut down on the practice of morning meditation, prayer and meditation. So that was sort of the key to making the change. And I would testify to that it can really bring about radical transformation in your life. So encourage you, go study it, go begin practicing it. And what we're doing in this series is we're going quite a bit deeper into that. I did my two-way prayer pretty much, I think, like they did in early AA days, listening for God's voice, writing down the thoughts that come, and acting on those if they pass the test. Were they honest, pure, unselfish, and loving? And that worked for me for a long, long while. After a while, I was doing a lot of studies on Carl Jung and his work, and I began to see that you could say that two-way prayer is a form of what Jung called active imagination. And I got more comfortable with this as time went on, that my practice was imagining that God was speaking to me. And if I could just enter into that state of imagination and then begin writing, lo and behold, stuff would start to come up that I was certainly unaware of when I began the writing for that day. It surprised me. And as I studied Jung, this form of prayer actually fits into a description of what he would call active imagination. So I had wanted to do a series on this, It's kind of a stretch. It's really kind of going a little further than I had in the historical stuff, but I think it's important, and if you can relate to it, I think it can take you to some really deeper levels inside. If you can't, that's fine. It's not really for everybody. Um, a Jungian priest friend of mine uh, who was not in recovery, he once said something I thought was interesting. He said, you people in 12 step, you really shouldn't say you're recovering. You should say you are uncovering. And I kind of like that. And I think there's truth to that. And you might say that this episode on shadow work and active imagination, it's a method for uncovering some of the deeper parts of ourselves. Jung called these parts shadow parts, parts that got shoved down into the basement of our minds, maybe in the hopes that they would never see the light of day. And if you've done an honest fourth and fifth step, you know the kind of stuff I'm talking about. We had to go to a place inside that we had sealed off from the world, that we had said, no, you're not coming in here, and I got the key, and I'm not even going in there. All right. But then we get pulled apart, and we have to go in there because it's the only place we're going to find recovery is by getting honest with some of the stuff that is inside. And what is the stuff? It's stuff that we had perhaps planned to take to the grave with us. Maybe shameful experiences, aggressive, even rageful impulses that we'd seen inside of us, immoral acts, urges, some of them done, some of them only thought about, secret fears, thoughts, feelings. You know the stuff. Uh, um, but you know what? There's also some hidden gold in there, and this is the thing that encourages me, and I hope will encourage you to take the journey inward. That oftentimes I hear people say about alcoholics and addicts, God, he had or she had so much potential. You ever heard that said? So much potential, but they never lived it out. And I think one of the reasons we have difficulty living it out is because we have fear of going inside and really finding out who we are. Um, and you might ask, what does this have to do with prayer? I think it really has everything to do with prayer, because prayer is raising our hearts and our minds to God. It's meeting God in a relationship. And God needs to meet all of those parts of me, just like I need to meet all of those parts of me. And some of them are dark and some of them are scary. Uh, and boy, it is true. It is true. Um, and so we try to avoid them, but then we're avoiding life, and we're avoiding growth, and we're avoiding change and transformation. So I don't know any other way than to go and meet the darkness. Jung said, I got a couple of quotes here from him to kind of get us going. I like this one. He said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, by making the darkness conscious. And he said this also, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. There's stuff going on inside, and two-way prayer helps bring the unconscious into consciousness. And so the use of active imagination, use of shadow work as part of your two-way prayer process can be another tool for going inside and dealing with some of those forces that are at work in there. I think one of the first dark forces that I got in touch with was a character that I subsequently named Atlas. Now, I'm not multiple personality disorder. Okay, I'm many things, but I am not that, and very very few people are that. But we all have voices and energies inside of us, and if we don't make these things conscious and bring them up to the surface, they're going to control our lives. And uh, and so in addition to being a recovering alcoholic, I'm recovering from many other things too. And one of them is being a control freak. I don't know if anybody can identify with that out there, but I want to be in control. I have a fear of people controlling me, and it goes really, really deep. I think I've traced it back in my own life to being a young kid raised in an alcoholic home, lots of chaos going on. And I'm 5, 6, 7 years old, and I'm trying to bring order to madness. And that's the feeling I go back to. I've got to bring order to the chaos. And that's at an unconscious level. And sometimes when I find my control freakiness really acting out, if I can trace it back, that's where I'm going to go to. That inside at that moment is this little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, desperately trying to keep order, afraid of the madness that's going to explode at any minute. And so I've got to be in control. I've got to be in control. It wasn't safe. Um, and what I did in many instances was then I took on to myself responsibilities and characteristics that were way beyond my emotional maturity to really realize. And so, if you're 6 years old and you're trying to run the world, you got a problem, you know. But there I was, you know. And then I'm 8 and 10, and I'm still trying to do it. 15 and 20, still trying to do it. Changes somewhat, you know, over the years, but that inner energy of feeling like the weight is on me. And one of the real ways that I really noticed this is when I was cooking, when I'm in the kitchen, and of course I had to be in charge, and so I would be the one who's doing the cooking, and maybe I got 4 or 5 things going at the same time. And I got to get the rolls out, and I got to get the turkey out, and I got to make the gravy, and everything's got to turn out just right because I'm a perfectionist, you know. And my kids would say, "Dad, we hate cooking with you." Why? Because Atlas would come out. Atlas was what I named this inner energy inside of me. All right. And Atlas was a character from mythology who did what? He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He literally carried the world. Uh, I worked as a kid growing up at a hotel called Curly's Atlas Hotel in Rockaway Beach. My downfall was when I became the bartender there, and things kind of went to hell after that. But on the top of the hotel was a great big statue of Atlas, the world on his shoulders. Atlas was carrying it all by himself. Right. So when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, I'm cooking the turkey dinner, you know. This character starts taking over my mind. Got to get this done, got to get that done. And so giving orders and running over people, running over my kids. And I mean, I could bring the three of them in here, and they would testify to this. um, and so part of my recovery has been, how do I deal with this? And what I found was two-way prayer can be really effective in doing that. Uh, Not so much talking to Jesus and saying, "Hey, keep Atlas in his quarters," but talking to Atlas. And that is what Jung recommended to his patients, that you take these energies that are at work inside of you and you dialogue with them. You dialogue with the different parts of yourself. And Jung considered this practice to actually be even more effective in bringing about transformation than doing dream work. Oftentimes you'll hear analysts talking about bring me the dreams, we'll analyze the dreams. You don't hear as much talk about this active imagination. And yet, this is what Jung said he believed was more impactful in this transformation. And there's a good reason for that. And the reason is in a dream, it is just your unconscious that is speaking. But in active imagination, we enter into dialogue with these parts. All right, and and we engage them. And so what you've got the conscious mind, the ego, engaging the unconscious mind, these energies, these separated parts that really kind of take us over. They take over our minds. Jung said you need to meet them and engage them. I'm going to using a book called Inner Work for this little series. Recommended highly. It's by Robert Johnson. It's using dreams and active imagination for personal growth is the subtitle. And I've read everything that Johnson has written, and he's been one of my really wonderful teachers. He was a beautiful, beautiful, gentle man and a student of Carl Jung. So, in his book on active imagination, he talks about 4 parts, and let me just kind of go over these with you. The first part is to engage in conversation. So I'm going to have a dialogue. Now, in two-way prayer, it's not a dialogue. I will ask a question, and then I will listen. And I teach people, don't go back and forth with God. Just listen. God has the stage, so to speak. Write down what he thinks. Don't react to it and go back and forth. He's not on the witness stand. And I'm not the equal to God. So when God is speaking, shut up and listen. Write it down, but I am the equal to my unconscious. This is very interesting. Jung said the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is like a cork floating on the ocean. And the ocean, of course, is the unconscious. And you might think, well, a little cork, a great big ocean, they're not equal. And Jung insisted that they were indeed equal. And so as I take on these powers, I may feel that they're overwhelming to me. Excuse me. But Jung would insist they are equal. So I'm going to engage in conversation, go back and forth like I'm writing a play with these different energies or parts or characters. We're going to exchange viewpoints. See, what does it feel like to be the energy inside of me? What does it feel like to be that Atlas who has to be responsible, who has to take charge? That chaos is going to ensue if he doesn't. He's got a point of view, all right? All right? I've also got a point of view that when this guy takes over, he has no boundaries and he runs over people. And that's not helpful. And so, how do we coexist? How do we live together in the same body? Because we're kind of stuck with one another, And so, we're going to exchange viewpoints on that. And the more honest I can be with him, and the more honest he will be with me. Jung said the way we treat the unconscious is the way the unconscious will reciprocally treat us. Then we go through adventures together, It's probably not going to be a one-shot deal. I've been dealing with Atlas for maybe 15, 18, 20 years. He comes back, and he's always with me. I know him now. I know when he is starting to stir inside of me. I feel that energy. Like I've got to take over. I got to be in charge here. Ooh, it's Atlas, isn't it? And then we're going to learn something from one another. This is this fourth part. We're going to learn something from one another. And one of the things that Jung would teach is that each of these parts has a gift to bring us. So part of my working with these split off parts is to retrieve their gift and to do the right work of an ego, which is to create boundaries. All right. And that's the appropriate use of the ego, because the unconscious has no boundaries. Okay. So there's kind of the setup for this. Now, I wish I had my original um, writings of where I first met Atlas and started talking to him and gave him a funny name. So he's my take charge and run over people guy inside. I got another one of excessive guilt. Gave him a funny name, Torquemada. Uh, if you're a student of history, Torquemada was in charge of the Spanish Inquisition. Guilt, shame, in the name of God, he would kill you. So literally. So the excessive guilt and shame within me, I talk to that part when it shows its ugly head. All right. Um, Again, this is not multiple personality disorder. This is, how do I find that energy that you've got an inner addict, you've got an inner critic, you've got lots and lots of inner parts. You maybe have an inner genius too, that you need to get in touch with. So I first wrote this, let's say 18, 20 years ago. And I got rid of my books. I don't save my books. I'll get a pile of them, but then I will destroy them because I don't want the kids reading them some Thanksgiving when I'm dead and gone. Oh, look what Dad said about you, Patrick. Because people come up. So, but what I do want to do is just give you a flavor for this, and it's two examples from 2 days of writings that I did about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So here's my question. Lord, I'm feeling nervous, anxious, disconnected. Please help me. So Jesus speaks. That's who I usually listen to. Jesus says, brother, listen to your body. I'm telling you, you're not connected to me. Excuse me, it's telling you you're not connected to me. You're holding back. Then the thought, step 10, came to my mind. I wrote that down. Unsurrendered. That was my condition. I'm unsurrendered. Like Adam hiding in the bushes. It's an image from Genesis where Adam is guilty and he's hiding in the bushes. I just love that scene, you know. And he says, well, I'm hiding because I was naked. And God says something so beautiful. He says, who told you you were naked? I love that line because it said, before the guilt and the shame, you had no guilt or shame. Before the act of taking on godlike qualities, you had no guilt or shame, but now you do. And so you're hiding. Oh, it's so beautiful. So I've done a lot of inner child work. And I say, Billy, is that you in there? Is that my inner kid who's hiding, who's 5 or 6 years old and feeling anxious? Billy says, so now I write a dialogue. If I am your soul, you know it is. Self, what's going on? Why are you so afraid? Billy, there's so much pain in the world right now. It's always been there, but it's been covered up with things. Now it's out in the open. We need to get down to real basics, turn to God, turn to one another, not run, not hide. Kid is actually pretty wise. And I say, but you are hiding. And he says, only because you're not safe. You won't feel. Self, yes, you're right. I knew the kid was right. Let's meet halfway. I'm feeling guided to get down on the floor. Jung once got down on the floor many times and played with inner characters. And I remembered that at that moment. I said, okay, I'm going to get down on the floor. Didn't want to do it. Hope to God my wife wasn't going to walk by and see me, but I did it. All right. Uh, I'm going to get down on the floor. I'm feeling guided to do that, to reach out to you in the bushes. There, is that better? Yes, Billy says. Get out of your head. Do yoga with me. Play with me. Right now, just hold me. Jesus comes in then. I did. I just held the kid and felt whole, W-H-O-L-E, more unified. Jesus comes in. Read Kazantzakis, Nikos Kazantzakis, St. Francis. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. If you've not read it, recommend it so highly. It's a story of St. Francis, but it's a novel, just lovely. Become a holy fool, Jesus says. It's your only chance for salvation. In my next day's writing, I actually talked to that fool inside. Good morning, fool. Are you there? Fool speaks. I'm gonna cut it short because time's running out. Fool and freedom both start with an F. Oh, my super serious one. I'm that part of you that would be free, but you must risk me or you'll never know. Risk what? Risk the things you cling to, the things that are suffocating you. You got down on the floor yesterday. I was so proud of you for that. I felt maybe there's yet a chance for this guy. Self, don't give up on me, not now. You have the freedom I'm craving, and I need your gift. I'm willing to pay the price. Just tell me what it is. The fool. Play. Play with the kid. All your parts. We're all parts of him. We're glad to see you walking again. My wife and I started walking in the morning. Get out of the house more. Will you risk with me? Self, what do you want to do? Fool, start with an old cartoon. Watch 2 or 3 with the kid on YouTube. He'll come out of the bushes if you try. Self, okay, let's go. Jesus steps in. I'll be here, but you don't need me now. Not now. And he was right. Oftentimes in my two-way prayer, Jesus will say, you don't need me. You don't need holy, holy, holy. You need whole, whole, whole. And you need to go to those parts of yourself that are separated and disjointed and disconnected and bring them into wholeness. And that is the point of doing this inner work that Johnson talks about. Is it dangerous? It sometimes is scary for people, and I know that that's true, and people will oftentimes avoid it. God knows I avoid it all the time. I'd much rather listen to Jesus than listen to Billy and the split off parts of me. And yet oftentimes he will send me exactly there because that's where the healing needs to happen. If you have a therapist and if you're in therapy, I'd advise you to check with him or her before you do this. If you're on heavy medications and such, might not be a good practice. But if you're a typical run-of-the-mill alcoholic addict, you got all these different parts, and you're already in conversation with them. They're speaking to you. The thing is for you to assert yourself and begin speaking back to them and integrating them because they each have a gift. Atlas has a gift for me. His gift was that I can get a lot of stuff done, but I can get it done either running over people or I can get it done connected with myself and connected to God and doing it honestly, purely, unselfishly and lovingly. And that is the difference, and it makes all the difference. So hope that this wasn't a little too much over the top, but I felt it was important to get it out there. Again, Robert Johnson's book, Inner Work, recommended highly. Hope this was helpful. God bless, and do keep coming back. They're not all as crazy as this one. God bless.